Well, hello, everyone. A happy belated Mother's Day to all the moms tuning in here on Old Man Squad. I don't want anyone ever to feel excluded. I feel like every once in a while I have to give the prelude here, which is the Old Man Squad is not the creators at this network slash website slash whatever the hell this thing is, podcast collective. It's the way I draft my fantasy teams. That's not that clear. I get it. If you're new, there's no reason that you should know that. But if you watch a lot of my shows, then you'll get it. It's why people are like, oh, Dan, let's talk about Chris Paul, like Eric did. My good buddy Eric Ong, who is more of an old man in real life, but doesn't draft old men. Regardless, happy Mother's Day. That's the whole point of all that crap. I'm Dan Besbris, at Dan Besbris on social media. Old Man Squad is the Twitter feed for all the shows that we put out here. It's also my handle on the Blue Sky Network. Last week on Friday, we had a show drop from Noah Rubin on Dynasty. We had a show drop from Adam King breaking down whether or not playoff performances should be utilized in how you handicap your players. And we had my own show, which was, I don't even remember anymore. Oh, it was the Eric show. We just talked about it a second ago. That was the one on Friday. We had 3 YouTube shows drop on Friday. I'm stoked because the Old Man Squad Network is kicking right now. I even donned my Saved by the Bell t-shirt because I feel so young and virile today. Today, we're going to be doing a little bit of a self-analysis program, which is something we did on either Wednesday or Thursday of last week. I can't remember which one. On that one, we looked at our do not draft list from before the season and kind of checked in on how it went. This one is, I don't know, probably not as self-reflective as the do not draft list, which by and large we did quite well on players to avoid. This one was a show that we put out. I don't know if you guys remember this. I think it was like the first, might have been 4-ish days into the season. I'm trying to see the timestamp on this thing. 1 week. It was 1 week into this season. We did a show called Did They Take the Leap, which was basically looking at guys that got off to really hot starts. And it was my take on whether or not those hot starts were sustainable or ones that you should be selling high on. So let's go back and take a look at that show effectively. Well, we'll look at the PowerPoint from that show. Did we make the calls right? So these are the guys that I said don't sell on. First one was Evan Mobley. And I think we can safely say we got that one right. His pre-rank on Yahoo was 38. On the board that, not the one that came out the day before the season started, but basically what was kind of like the last board that everybody was drafting off of. And at the time of doing the Did They Take the Leap show, he was number 9. He did not stick at 9, but that's fine because he finished in the second round, which was still a round and a half higher than where he was being drafted. So let's talk about the player. Let's talk about how we got there. Evan Mobley this year, interestingly, the minutes were actually down. And we talked a little bit about that and kind of what it meant for Donovan Mitchell, which was, usage stats were lower, so everything kind of went down with it. For Mobley, the minutes being lower, not than last year, but then his career mark. Last year, the minutes were lower because he was beat up a lot. This season, the minutes were lower because the Cavs were just steamrolling everybody. And now they're getting punked by a Pacers team, although they're badly injured at the moment. We'll see. And Donovan Mitchell might be the next one to go down for Cleveland. This perfect season derailed by, 4 injuries at the exact same time. Not to take anything away from the Pacers, but all of a sudden their path got a little bit simpler. So Mobley this year played 30 and a half minutes, which is basically the exact same as what he played last year. The big difference over last year is that he's been more involved. Last season in 30 and a half minutes, he took 11 shots a game. This year in 30 and a half minutes, he's taking 13. When we discussed Evan Mobley before the season started, we talked about the way that he would be, I don't know, not necessarily like a post-type guy, but coming off an injury-plagued 2023-2024 season, why we felt he was a value coming into this year. So this is also one that we were high on this show as well, was go get Evan Mobley. Then he got off to this fast start, and it would have been easy to just, do like a confirmation bias thing. Oh, we wanted him high. He's doing well. But it was really about looking sort of in between. Steals and blocks were almost exactly where they needed to be. He's around a block and a half a game in roughly starters minutes. You figure if they ever had to play a closer game, he'd get more, but they didn't. Steals are exactly on his career mark. Turnovers were on his career mark. Assists were basically on his career mark. Rebounds were on his career mark. Free throw was a little bit better, similar to last year, but he's a negative there. So even a little bit better, more free throws was actually a slightly larger negative. He added a 3-point shot season over season, went from 0.4 to 1.2, which was not completely insignificant to go from basically being a zero there to being close to league average for a power forward center guy. But again, the big one with Mobley was 56% shooting now on 13 shots a game instead of 11. So that field goal percent became a larger positive, and the scoring was far and away a career high, a good 2.5 points more than any season he'd had previously. And again, he did it in a lower minutes total. And if you remember, coming into the season, the thought process on why Evan Mobley was he's coming off an injury-prone season where you saw the field goal percent efficiency was great. The free throw percent had taken a step forward. It seemed like he was ready to do a little bit more, but his minutes were down. He was a little sluggish. He wasn't as involved on offense as we thought he might be. Figured this year with a more prominent role or more minutes, was sort of one, the other, or both, that things would sort of move in the right direction, and they did. So he was a guy who took a leap this year, not as big as the first week of the season. He wasn't a first rounder, but definitely got better, and it definitely stuck. Guys, BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all sports betting here during your NBA playoffs. You got 2 games tonight if you want to get down on it. Boston, 6.5-point road favorite at New York. Every road team has won in that series so far. Minnesota, 5.5-point favorites on the road at Golden State. Of course, the big story there is the continued absence of Steph Curry. Can the Warriors manufacture any kind of offense without Steph and his gravity that just pulls everyone to him? And it's a different monster. We talk about, like, can Jimmy Butler carry a team? It was different because the Heat were built to be around him. The Warriors are built to be around Steph and Draymond, but without Steph, Draymond's sort of not really, like, I know he had a good shooting game in there. I get it, but it's a hard hill to climb. But that's a lot of points to lay on the road. You also got baseball season in full swing. If that's your jam, I find baseball to be incredibly difficult to handicap. NHL playoffs, and of course, everything else coming around the corner. NBA draft, lottery ball stuff is happening right now. Draft itself is not for another month. Either way, no matter how you slice it, BetOnline has more ways to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news, scores, and even live in-game betting while these contests are being played. So if you don't want to get down on that opening line, you can bet into it while it's happening. Should you feel so inclined and are bored right now, you can also play in the BetOnline casino while you wait for the games to start. They get all the top Vegas-style action there, including poker, blackjack, live slots, and more. BetOnline, the game starts here. Who was the next name on our list of guys that we thought were off to a hot start and were taking the leap? Jalen Suggs. He was pre-ranked 95th. He was ranked 20th after the first week of action. Sadly, he did not finish there, but his season was marred by injury issues, which unfortunately has been a little bit of a recurring thing for Suggs now. Is he like the new Pat Beverly, where he's just going to play himself into injury all the time? Or can he have a Josh Harshin? That's like, if you're from Mars, you're a Martian. If you're in the mold of Josh Hart, you're a Harshin. Can he have a Josh Harshin health resurgence at some point? But for Suggs so far, 48 games his first season, 53 sophomore year, finally got up to 75 last year, and there was a sign that maybe things were trending in the right direction, but just 35 this year, despite what appeared to be a huge jump forward. Free throw percent was very good. He got up to 88% this season. That's a solid 11, basically like 12, 13% higher than his career mark coming into this year. Didn't shoot the 3 ball all that well, but I wasn't super worried about it. Field goal percent was down But again, a lot of that came while he was trying to figure out who the hell he was, because he got off to that fast start, unsustainably hot, obviously, and then you knew he was going to cool off. So what is Jalen Suggs going forward, besides a guy you do have to be a little bit worried about on the injury side? This year, he played 28 and a half minutes a game and averaged 16 points, 4 boards, almost 4 assists, 1.5 steals, a block, 2.2 threes, bad field goal, good free throw. I'll be honest with you guys. I'm a little bit stumped on what Jalen Suggs is going to be from the field going forward. He took 7 threes a game this year, which is not that crazy. It's about the same percentage of threes to twos as he took last season when he shot 40% from downtown and 47% overall. Is that the big factor here? Like, I know he had I call it a down 3-point shooting season. He just wasn't as good as last year. He was more like what he had been previously. So is he a 31%er from downtown? Is he a 40%er from downtown? Is he a 75% free throw shooter? Is he an 88% free throw shooter? I actually don't really know. What I do know is that he's probably going to miss a few games this coming season. And I'm still comfortable taking him in that kind of 8th, 9th round range where he went this year, because I do think that there's a decent amount of built-in upside on an Orlando team that needs him to be the third guy. And the steals and blocks are always going to kind of float the value and so on and so forth. If things break right and he gets the field goal percent back up to, 44, 45, then he's a top 60 guy. If he doesn't, he hovers around where he was this past year, which was in the 80s. Did his hot start sustain? It did not. He did take more shots. He did keep the steals high, which was what I was wondering about when I did this show the last week of October. But what didn't stick was the field goal percent, and what didn't stick was the health. And so you kind of you look at it and you're like, all right, well, I don't, like, what happened? How much of this season can you pin on that? And in fact, the funny thing is, his hot start, he shot the ball fine, but he actually wasn't taking a ton of shots the first week. It went 4, 6, and then a pair of 17. So it averaged out, was that 44 over 4 games to 11 shots a game. So nothing crazy there, but he was hitting threes at that point, and then he went pretty cold from downtown after that. And so you get these sort of hot stretch, cold stretch things, and then in and out of the lineup. And then, he missed a bunch of games. He came back. He played 1. Then he was back out again. I think you kind of have to assume he's a low 40s field goal percent guy and then build it from there. So this one, did he take the leap? Sort of, but not really. Austin Reaves was another guy that was on our list of taking the leap. He had a pre-rank of 100. He was ranked 22nd after the first week of the season. This one took a lot of twists and turns after this point. After the first week watching Lakers, and you guys know I watch almost every Lakers game in their entirety, because I do have this like pipe dream of doing a Lakers show at some point, but right now I've got so much time invested in the fantasy side that there's not time for the Lakers side. But at that point, a week into the season, Austin Reaves had very clearly taken the number 2 ball handling job behind LeBron, and he was running a lot of action with Anthony Davis, and D'Angelo Russell was already being phased out. Even 1 week into the season, you could see that D'Lo was not going to be the thing. D'Lo got traded. Reaves obviously got to do more. Luka came in and was hurt when he arrived, so Austin continued to do more. Then LeBron missed a couple of games in there, and Reaves did more. But ultimately, he still did a bunch, even when the Lakers were healthy. Reaves was excellent, even in the Luka Doncic build. Not so much during the playoff run, if you can even call it a run. But prior to that, he was basically like a second, third rounder. With Luka, we're talking about. His looks are going to be good. He's going to be, and LeBron, not that you're going to fade LeBron at any point, but he's going to be another year older next year. And Reaves is just going to keep having to do stuff. He's a high efficiency dude. Not a great defensive stats guy, but scores, hits threes, boards a little bit, assists a bit, high field goal, high free throw. Like, he's a terrific roto guy. I have no idea where he's going to get drafted next year, but did we get this one right? Yeah, we got this one right. He was great. He was great with D'Lo. He was great without D'Lo. He was great with Luka. He was great without Luka. He turned himself into a fantasy Goliath. He had indeed taken. Oh, yes. The next name on the list was one that we were beating the drum on like a loony bin during draft season. Like basically from the minute that Paul George went somewhere else, I was very high on Ivica Zubac. And, during draft season, it was a pain in the butt because he opened in August with a pre-rank of like, crap. I mean, I can look it up if we really need to. I think his pre-rank was like 105 when draft season opened. Let's go back to my Dan Vespris super Google sheet that had all this stuff on there. Where was the... You can wait. You can wait. He says confidently while making terrible content. 112. Moved to 106 on the second iteration. That was in late August. They didn't have another update until early October, and he was still in the 90s. And it wasn't until 5 days before the season that he finally got moved into the 70s. That's where Zubac finished. He finished at 75. But for most of draft season, he was 99 or later. He was an easy Mondo win at 100. At 75, I admit I was a little bit concerned that we were going to start to price him out a little. And at the beginning of the season, he was number 51. Got off to a big start in the scoring and rebounding department, and that was really what was kind of fueling him. That stuff, and then the rest of his season was this like really cool meeting of mean reversions where the scoring came down while the free throw number came up. I think he was scoring like 20 points a game the first week of the season, and he was doing it on, mid 60 field goal percent. So it was this Mondo beginning, and he ended up with a great season. Zubac finished as a third rounder per game this year. So he very much took the leap. Like this one we got right in August. We got this one right in October. We got this one right at the end of October. We got this one right all the way through. That's fine. Great. Pat's self on back. But the key is understanding why. And it was just a changing of how the Clippers were going to run offense. It was also a dramatic thinning of the herd in terms of backups. Mason Plumlee was gone. Who's the backup this year? Mo Bamba? Am I remembering that right? So no backup. There was no one else. And the team was consistently better for like the last 4 years in a row. When Zubac is on the floor, it just had to be the right fit. And now all of a sudden, with Kawhi out for the first half of the season too, you knew you were going to get Harden and Zubac pick and rolls over and over and over and over and over again. And yeah, Harden's an old dude who shot 39, 38% for most of this season until he finally warmed up at the very end. But like, teams had to guard him, and he's a good passer, and Zubac is a big freaking dude. I don't think most folks realize he's big. If you want to talk about the Lakers' massive screw-ups over the years, not re-signing Alex Caruso and trading Ivica Zubac, like, what have you done? He was middling for a while, but he has come into his own now as he's hit his prime. But that dude's 7 feet, 240. He's a big damn dude. So this year he played 6 more minutes. He took 4 more shots per game. Percentages held. Well, free throw actually was down. Believe it or not, he could actually be better next year if he shoots around 70% at the line instead of 66. But everything went up proportionally to him playing more other than field goal percent, which went up faster, again, because he was just a bigger part of what they were doing. And a pick and roll offense, your big dude is going to roll. And if you have a decent guy running it, he's going to get the ball right in front of the rim repeatedly. And he did. But, the rebounds went up from 9.5 to 12.5 because his playing time went up by like 20 more than 20%. He was just on the floor forever. Blocks didn't go up. That could actually be better. You're going to have to spend, if you want Zubac next year, you're going to have to draft him probably in the 3rd or 4th round. But man, I'm like, if he's there in the 4th round, I'll draft him. To me, we've talked about the Jared Allen corridor on this show, which shout out Jared Allen for getting a corridor of draft spots named after you. It's just all the centers that go between, 37 and 65, and they're all pretty much a wash. You're just picking like, oh, you wanted, a little more rebounding. Great. You go Zubats. Oh, you wanted a slightly better free throw percent. Oh, you go Jared Allen. Oh, you wanted blocks. You go Miles Turner. You wanted more steals mixed in with that. You go Jakob Pertl now, who was lower because his team is tanking, and we'll sort that one out when we get there. Oh, you wanted blocks and threes, but a bad field goal percent. Okay, well, not bad, but worse. You go Jaren Jackson Jr. Oh, you wanted consistency and more steals with boards, but not a ton of blocks. You go Bam Adebayo. There's like 6 of them that are all, you could make a very reasonable case that you can take any one of them in there and you're totally fine. And you're just sort of mixing and matching little tweaks on stats. But welcome to the Jared Allen corridor of Ivica Zubats. I would bet my foot that he will probably get drafted there next year. Dyson Daniels is the next one on this list. He was pre-ranked 161. He was ranked 61, by the way, after the first week of the season. Believe it or not, he hadn't had his real breakout yet after 1 week. But here on this show, luckily, we said, yeah, this is going to stick. Now, we were high on him coming into the season, and I wasn't alone with that one. We had 25 draft shows, my own and with guests, that were like, Dyson Daniels is your guy. But if you go back and you look at the very first, because again, we did this show, this sort of look back that we're looking at right now, after 4 games for Dyson Daniels. And at that point, he did have 11 steals through 4 games. So he was averaging about 3 a game. He had a block a game in that one as well. He had 6 3-pointers. He wasn't scoring a ton. Scoring was fine. Rebounding was not all that great at that point. I think he was 12, 17. He was at about 4 rebounds a game during that span. But this is a guy whose field goal percent trended up over the course of the year. And really, the only thing that stunk for Dyson Daniels was his free throw number. Noah Rubin put out a Hawks Dynasty primer today on Old Man Squad, so make sure to subscribe to the YouTube page. That's a reason to get that. And he talks in much more depth about Dyson Daniels and, looking towards the future and what all that means. But, this is a pretty easy one to look at because a week into the season, he was playing 34 minutes a game instead of, 22 that he had in New Orleans last year. And everything went up by at least 50% over that. It was more because he was more confident. He was part of what the team was building and he was, kind of showing out. But this was a pretty easy one to say, yeah, top 60 or whatever, don't sell high. And obviously he ended up getting better from there. But we don't have to talk about Dyson Daniels a ton. That's been done here on this show and others over and over and over again. Let's see who's next. Oops. Here's what we got flat out wrong. Bilal Coulibaly. However, his pre-rank was 187. His current rank after 1 week was 120. So it wasn't like he was off to a gangbusters type start. He was a back-end serviceable 9-cat guy after 1 week of the season. But again, go back. We'll look at the first 4 games of the year. He had 8 points, 23, 17, and 27, and he was shooting around 50% after that stretch. So in looking at the numbers, there was some stuff that was holding him back. How the hell was he ranked outside the top 100 over that span? I guess I don't really know. Free throws were okay after those 4 days. Rebounds, 12, 14, 23, 5.5, almost 6 rebounds a game. The numbers across the board actually looked pretty good after his first week. To say I thought he could stay in the 120 range, I guess, wasn't that insane. But obviously, he was going to cool off. So that was the big issue there, was what's going to happen to his numbers when he's not shooting 48, 49% from the field. And whoa, did he ever cool off. Coulibaly went from like kind of neutral in field goal percent and just fell off a cliff. Because after the hot start, he was down around 40 pretty much the rest of the year. He ended up at 42 in total, 74.5% at the free throw line. Counting stuff all looks good. 12 points, 5 boards, 3.5 assists, 1.3 steals, 0.7 blocks, over a 3-pointer. This is a guy that could be a 1-1-1 dude at some point. But he got starters minutes this year, and his percentages suck. And it's really hard if you're not hyper elite in something to cover up bad percentages. You can cover up 1 without being hyper elite, but it's really hard to cover up 2. And therein lies the rub. I had faith in Bilal Coulibaly getting better at field goal percent after a good start, when in fact, he ended up getting worse. His three-pointer abandoned him this year. He shot 28% from downtown. He was at 35% last year. But then, again, you could look at the numbers and say, all right, well, what does this mean going forward? Is it worth taking another shot on him and say, okay, well, what if the three-point percentage comes back up to 35 instead of 28? What does that do to his overall marker? Well, about 40% of his shots were from downtown, a little bit less than that. So if you bake in, a 7% jump at, 4/10 of his overall stuff, yeah, it would help. The field goal percent would have gone up by a percentage point or two. Like, this stuff matters in the long run. And then, is he a top 100 guy if he's shooting 44% from the field? Close. The scoring would be better. Instead of 12 points, maybe you give him 13 and a half. But is his job going to get bigger? That's the big question mark. The Wizards got older and more tankier, believe it or not, as the season went on. They're still going to have Jordan Poole, who's jacking up crap. Sarr is in the mix. Bob Carrington is in the mix to do more stuff. I'm sure they'll add another young guy to the mix this coming season. I don't think you need to take a shot. I feel like Coulibaly is the kind of guy where you could probably just pick him up off the waiver wire right after your draft ends. You draft somebody who goes on the injured list immediately, and then Coulibaly is like the 14th rounder. Because if it clicks, there's some upside there because he's playing, but we got to fix the percentages. 74.5% at the free throw line is better than the previous year. So could we get him up to 77, 78 next season? Could we get the field goal up to 44 or 45? That's the kind of stuff you're looking at to say, okay, that gets him to 14 points. That gets him 14, 5, and 4 with, 1.5 threes and 2 defensive stats. That's a top 100 guy. But this past year, not to be. The honorable mentions from this past season, guys that got off to decent starts that I thought had a chance to maintain it. 3 names: Rui Hachimura, Onyeka Okongwu, and Christian Braun. Obviously, Christian Braun stuck it out all year. Again, this was basically a show we did. I think it was October 29th or 30th. That was me saying, these are the guys you should just hold on. Don't sell to try to squeeze value. Just see what happens the rest of the year. Obviously, Christian Braun turned out to be great all season long. Okongwu was up, then down, and up, then down, and then they finally pulled the plug on Clint Capella, and then Okongwu was way up, who, by the way, also will probably get drafted in the Jarrett Allen corridor next year. Rui Hachimura, not as much his season. The injury was a buzzkill because he was starting to get to do more. He probably can be like a top 130, 140 kind of guy in the Luka build when the Lakers are running small. If the Lakers get a center this offseason, I don't think there's any hope there. And so Rui, yeah, I mean, if you could have sold him after the first week for something, it would have been better. But as far as the overall was for this show, mostly pretty good. The Take the Leapers guys that we looked at 1 week into the season, what happened with them again? Evan Mobley, yeah, great. It was a good hold. Jalen Suggs, not a great hold. Would have been good to get something for him, but you didn't know he was going to miss a half of the season. Austin Reeves was a good hold. Ivica Zubac was a good hold. Dyson Daniels was a good hold. Okongwu, Christian Braun were good holds. Bilal Coulibaly, not a great hold. But you dropped him, didn't matter, and I don't know how much you were going to get for him anyway. Rui Hachimura, probably weren't going to get much for him either. So really the only one on this list that you should have sold very high on, and we didn't, was Jalen Suggs. Bum, 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 bum. Pew. Oh, a timer goes off. And that timer is reminding me it's time to go eat lunch. It's actually not what the timer was for. I had it set for something else. But it's lunchtime. Show's over. Thanks for watching, everybody. Pretty good marks on that one as well. So far, I'm satisfied with what we've seen. The do not draft list, we got most of those right. The early season hold, don't sell list, got most of those right as well. I'm telling you, man, being able to focus exclusively on fantasy sports, I did better. It shouldn't surprise me, but it does. I'm Dan. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, all that stuff on the way out, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Make sure to enjoy everything else we got here at Old Man Squad. In the meantime, adios.